The Ricoh Theta S. Is this the best value 360 cam? With the release of its 4K big brother, the Ricoh Theta V, the Theta S is likely to drop in price. Currently, they retail new around 300 and used at about 200, but I'd say 2019 is likely to see this camera drop in price even more. Now it's a 360 camera, which means obviously it has two camera lenses on it. They are two super wide lenses that are stitched internally once the photo or video is taken. Now those cameras are powered by two 1/2 inch CMOS sensors that are rated at 14 megapixels each. It records video at a full 1080p at 30 frames per second. Now your videos or photos are recorded internally on the 8GB storage. There is no option for any additional storage, so no SD card slots on this thing at all. Everything is recorded straight onto the camera itself. Now those photos or video are accessible with the Ricoh Theta app. You can, however, use the camera without the app itself with just the on-body functions. But to gain full control, including control over the camera aperture and shutter, as well as file management, you'll need the app itself, which will run on Android or iOS. So with that, let's look at the good bits of the Ricoh Theta S. Build quality is always the first thing you notice, and the build quality of this is actually really good. It has a rubberized exterior on both front and back sides and a stainless steel body. The exterior of the chassis is plastic, and it does have a slightly plastic feel, but not in necessarily a cheap way. The only real design flaw of it is the fact that the two super wide lenses do protrude from the body quite a lot, which means you're not going to be able to lay the camera down when you're not using it. It's also super lightweight and really quite tiny, which means it's the kind of camera or accessory that you're going to be able to take with you without too much bother. And as you know, those are the kind of accessories that you're actually going to get to use. Battery life. The battery life is absolutely superb in this little camera. It far outstrips what the memory capacity will ever allow you to do. You can record 25 minutes of video in one go with it, and the battery life will far outstrip that, meaning that really it's just the internal storage which is going to be your limiting factor. And probably the best feature about the camera is the software itself, which is quite surprising. With pretty much any camera that relies on software as part of its functionality, it's almost always that iOS or Android app that lets it down. And with the Ricoh Theta S, that really kind of bucks the trend. It's very easy to use, the connection happens very swiftly, and it's very rarely drops that connection. And finally, the best feature is that it takes really cool images. You know those kind of tiny planet ones that you sometimes see on your Instagram feed? This camera is the one that will get you those. The actual 360 images where you're left to scroll around like someone lost in a fishbowl, they're not so great. But those tiny planet ones are really effective. The stitching, which is done internally, is almost seamless. And that's because the field of view of the lenses themselves overlap. And obviously the software they use to stitch them is done quite so well. So with that, let's look at the bad points of the Ricoh Theta S. I am by no means a fan of 360 video, so I'm gonna have to be really careful not to be overly harsh on this camera just because I don't like 360 video. I find it disorientating, I get lost in it. I think there's a lack of kind of cinematography because you, the viewer, is left to decide on what to look at, and often you're left feeling like you're missing the thing you're supposed to be looking at. It's just an uncomfortable experience all round. But that being said, this really isn't a video camera. The video quality that you get out of it is poor, and that's because it's a 1080 360 camera. So really, the resolution you're getting out in one field of view is around 320 pixels because those 1080 have to stretch so far. It has a continuous infinity focus, which should mean that pretty much everything within its minimum focus distance is in focus, but it's just not the case. Anything that's close to the camera is in focus. Anything that's in the background is totally out of focus. So if you're more than a couple of meters away from the camera, then you will always be one of those blurry out of focus subjects. It has the dynamic range of a megaphone. It is absolutely awful. The highlights are always totally blown out. If you have cloudy skies, then it just looks like a white wash. There's no detail in the dark bits or the blacks, and the color profile is just generally not very nice to look at. at least in the video part of it anyway. Now I could go on about the things I dislike about it, the fact that there's no external storage, you can't put an SD card in it, or just generally the overall gimmickiness of 360 video. But I'm gonna stop myself because I'm just being overly harsh on it. As a camera that takes kind of cool images, it does definitely have a place, but as a 360 video camera, well, I'm not sure if any of them have a place. I wouldn't recommend this camera if you're on a tight budget. If you only have £300 to spend, don't buy it because you'll probably be disappointed. But then I'd probably struggle to recommend its 4K Big Brother as well. But that being said, if you're looking for a cool toy that will give you some awesome looking Instagram photos, then this is definitely something to look at, especially at that £200 to £300 price point. So that's been my grab and go review of the Ricoh Theta S. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.